This next speaker was a pastor in the town of DeRidder, Louisiana, and preached for 25 years, all the while slowly and silently questioning his faith. Now, I was fortunate enough to actually see this speaker last year at Regional Rock in Little Rock, and I have been a huge fan ever since. He is inspiring, he's entertaining, he's enlightening, he's charismatic. He should be working a mega church right now, but he's running a mega atheist, whatever you call those churches. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Jerry DeWitt.
I just thought I was nervous. Now you need to turn me down a little bit. A little hot. At least that's what David said last night. So one of the biggest regrets, people ask me, what do you regret about having been in the ministry? And they expect all type of, very humanistic concerns and regrets, like, I regret telling all these stories like Bishop Barker described so well just a few minutes ago. But actually, one of my biggest regrets is that I did not get to spend the time with my family, particularly my son, that I wish that I would have been able to. The ministry is very all-consuming. So my son says he grew up looking at me with a phone next to my head, because even if we were driving to church, I was still dealing with church issues and on the way back. So I have this wonderful opportunity in my life right now. If you don't know about Patreon, Patreon's a pretty cool thing, and at least most Wednesdays and most Sundays I put out a little message on Patreon, do some audio clips almost every day, sometimes a little video blog, but one of the funnest things that I do is my son and I game together. Exactly. It's exactly like that. So, this is one of our first experiences together, and you can see it on our Facebook page, Team DeWitt. You'll hear my son in the back. I'm actually steering the Batmobile in this event. If you've seen the movie, don't spoil it. Please, don't spoil it for me. But this is the experience that my son has to put up with, and I will warn you in advance, it has some adult language.
Oh, I gotta do the whole thing again? Yeah. Oh my God, no. Harder than last time. No. Yeah. No.
Can you hear it okay?
All right. Oh. All right. Yeah, cool. Well, it didn't even say nothing. Doesn't matter. God. Oh my God. Help me. Jesus, take the wheel. Oh, God damn! No. Can I make it? Can I make it? No. Oh, Jesus. Kill yourself with recipe while you're on top of that. Do I have to start all over? Yeah. Oh, like all 3 rounds? Yeah. No, you're You are a liar. No, you are a liar. No. Well, actually, I don't know what you have to do because you never scoot up this thing.
I think it was too low, and you'll actually laugh through the punchline. It stops right before I say the F word. So, with that being said, I'm going to use some vehicles as just an illustration. Believe it or not, I was cool enough at one time to drive this car. Not this car in particular. I drove one very similar, except mine had about 3 different colors. Each door was a different color. The logos were gone, and there was no chrome on it anywhere. But it was a pretty cool experience. So I've done things that's even more interesting than driving the Batmobile. And I can look back over the course of my life, and I can find these important vehicles. This represents my teenage experience, right? This represents, matter of fact, an extremely interesting experience I had of traveling down Interstate or Highway 171 at over 100 miles an hour. Friends loaded up in the car, the windows down, the wind blowing through our hair. Wasn't quite as concerned about my hair then as I am now. And passed our yard at 100 miles an hour. And it just so happened, as luck would have it, my mother was standing out on the front porch. And my friends saw her, and I start trying to figure out what to do, so we pull back into the yard. She immediately meets me just right off the few steps off the porch. What were you thinking? What are you doing? She's probably not thinking about me as much as she's thinking about all the kids that I've got in the car with me. And I said, well, Mama, we just heard on the radio that today is the 100th anniversary of someone driving 100 miles an hour. So we had to celebrate. Because it's important. Vehicles can be important. There's a lot of important steps and milestones within our lives. And even though you may know some of my story and you may know a little bit about where I'm coming from, there's a lot of things that can't be crammed into this book. There's a lot of things that we don't have time at the end of a conference in the after party to go into the deep details and for you to maybe know me the way I'd like for you to know me or vice versa. So if you've read this book, I appreciate it, but it's missing some very key points. And what's missing out of this book are some of the important vehicles that I've driven in my life. Not just the Batmobile, most recently, and not just the Firebird, but there's other vehicles in my life, and these vehicles came along long before I was involved with any of these organizations, and long before our story, thanks in such a great part to Dan Barker and all of his help, long before our story or the story of the ex-minister made it across the world. Across the world. So one of the most important vehicles in my life was a Dodge Durango. Because that Dodge Durango was owned by the city of DeRidder. And I got to drive it. And you'll just have to guess whether or not the size of the vehicle was compensated for anything, but that's a different story altogether. I enjoy driving. Some of you are shaking your head no, and you should know. But so I was driving this city vehicle, and I was proud to do so. I was working for the mayor's office. I was still pastoring a church just an hour south. And I had finally gotten somewhere. I come from a poor family. I come from a broken home. I come from a small town. My graduating class was 55 people. I think I ranked maybe 52 or so. And it meant something to me. It meant something to me to drive this truck around. It meant something to me that people could identify this is a city vehicle, and they knew when I drove up. It meant something to me to have that position, and equally as important to me, it meant something to me whenever I would go to church on a Wednesday or a Sunday, and in particular the little kids would run out, and hearing them call me pastor, you've heard me say it before, was almost on the same level of hearing my own son call me dad. That position meant something to me. But riding in that damn truck, I couldn't shut this off. And I'd already worked my way all the way through the Old Testament and had apologetics for all of those things, just like Dan explained a few minutes ago. But now I was wrestling with this idea within the New Testament that a person could not be good enough to be saved, could not be good enough to earn God's love. Instead, it was given to them, unmerited. It was given to them by grace. And the New Testament teaching of that by grace through faith are you saved, not of your works, lest any man should boast, was important to me at that time in my Christian experience. And I was trying to work my way through that. I was pastoring a church, and in this church there were, as it is in any church, it was filled with flawed humans, with messed up marriages and stupid kids, right? And everybody's trying their best, and they're just trying to live, they're just trying to get by, or maybe they're trying to get another job, or maybe they're trying to get in or out of a marriage. They're just trying to survive, and they're wondering, are they good enough for God to love them? Do they pray enough? Do they read enough? Do they give enough? Do they attend enough? Is it enough? And I was trying to find a way to express this idea that it was not about our works, it was not about our goodness, it was not about our actions, but it was through faith. And that faith then would give us God's grace. And in that truck, right here on Highway 171, also known as Pine Street, right before I was about to turn into Popeyes, for lunch at work, right? The secret to this, if you were wondering. It hit me. this thing about faith and works. It suddenly hit me because a work was like if there was something for you to obey, because obedience in the Old Testament is better than sacrifice. If God says, go pick this up and take it over and give it to David, that's a work, and God owes you something for doing that, right? And you get a wage, you get paid for having been obedient doing something. But this teaching of faith was different. You didn't have to do anything in order for God to love you. It was by grace. That was important to me because I wanted more than I wanted breath, to be able to take the people of that church and to wrap them in my arms collectively and tell them they were okay with all of their faults and all of their failures and all of their shortcomings and all of their troubles, all of their mistakes, all of their divorces, all of their marriages, all of their stupid kids. They were okay. Lots of stupid kids. Like there's a 75-cent cure for this. You can, But I wanted to make it okay. And I thought this doctrine of grace, being able to tell them, you don't have to do anything. It's not about whether or not you come to church. It's not about whether or not you give the most in the offering, unless I need some. It's not about, it's not about those things. It's by grace through faith. And then, right as I was about to get that 3-piece chicken strip, right, spicy with Cajun rice, extra barbecue sauce, Dr. Pepper. Right as I was about to make that turn, it hit me. 2 possible scenarios. I'd never thought of it before. Either faith actually is something that you have to choose to do, and if you make that choice to do that, then you did something, and it's no longer grace because now God owes you for your faith. And the whole system falls apart. Because now you're back with works. Everybody with me on that? Or, the grace side of it is that you can't make that choice. God makes that choice for you and puts it in your heart. And you believe because He made you believe. And that's still not up to you. So if it is up to you, the system falls apart. If it's not up to you, there's not a damn thing you can do about it. I literally turned into Popeyes, a different person. It had all fallen apart right there. In that vehicle. And it still means something to me to see that vehicle. Though I no longer work for City Hall, when I drive by, for some reason, the people who replace me aren't allowed to take it home. I'm not quite sure about what that is. But I'll drive by and I'll see it, and I'll remember these moments. Vehicles are important within our lives. So when I left City Hall, and I had to give up the truck, I had to go get a vehicle. I had to go get a car. And there was a guy that I'd gone to church with that had a car lot, and I wanted to buy it from him. I trusted him. His name's Honest John, so how can you not believe that? And so I go to Honest John's lot, and I look around. I don't really see anything that sticks out to me. And right when I start to leave, though the top was up, I see this makeshift roll bar. And I had like a 30-second midlife crisis. I pictured it with the top down, and I saw this dune buggy looking car. And I said, this is it. And so I got this car. A few months later, still very proud of it, I pulled in late one night, and my son, who at that time was about 19 or 20, was out in the front yard with his friends, like kids do. And as I was starting to walk in the house, I thought I heard one of them say, PT Cruiser. And I what? Y'all talking about my car? Anybody want to take it for a ride? They're like, no, Dad, no. I said, I heard somebody say PT Cruiser. No, you did not. I said, I know that I did. I heard somebody say, no, actually, you heard Chris say PT Loser. So, City Hall is come and gone. Grace Church is come and gone. CNN isn't yet there. Dan Barker isn't yet there. Hope After Faith isn't yet published. None of those things that you know me for have happened yet. It's still before all of that. But I'm riding in this PT Cruiser, and I'm working for my best friend, and all of those responsibilities are lifted, and I am on the verge of realizing it. And I'm flying down Highway 171 again with the top down and the wind blowing through my hair and my best Billy Joel cranking out, right? Don't call me old.
And all of a sudden, in that vehicle, this sense of relief hits me. And the biggest, for the sake of YouTube, F it, right? F the whole thing. F the past, F the present, F the future. The biggest F the whole thing came rolling. Is it falling? Came rolling out of me. Huge. So much so that I instantly began to speak in other tongues. We're working on it. Let me show you.
Can they hear you in the back?
Can y'all hear me in the back even when projecting?
Yeah.
Without the mic? Or is the mic still working?
I hear you.
Use this one.
Everybody good?
Yeah.
Now we have to find some offering plates and we'll be in business. And so while I'm traveling down that highway, free from ministry, free from politics, free from this dilemma of Old Testament versus New Testament, faith versus works, free from all of these things, I truly have a life-changing experience where I feel this exhilaration of say, screw the whole thing. Screw it. Have you ever been there? You ever done that? Where suddenly there's this huge relief that literally frees your entire being. Right? And I did. I literally spoke in tongues when it happened. Because I've been conditioned to do that when I felt that sense of euphoria. I spoke in tongues and laughed about it a few seconds later and enjoyed that moment. But what's important about this, and the reason that I'm sharing that with you, is because that moment of screw the whole thing and feeling complete liberty couldn't have happened without this moment. And they're the same moment. They're really the same moment. You don't necessarily realize it in the moment, but they are the same moment. When you get down to the bottom of some of your biggest questions and all you're left with is questions, right? Because when I got down to the bottom of whether it was faith or works and the whole thing began to disintegrate around me, I didn't know what was next. I didn't know where to go, not just theologically. I didn't know where to go in my life. And there is some exhilaration. There is some true freedom that's in that. And so why do I share that with you today? I've been with you now for 5 years. Can you believe it's been that long? Feel like that today, right now, 5 years? I've been with you for 5 years, and I want to tell you something that we need to avoid as non-believers. We need to avoid the temptation of knowing everything. Because there's some freedom on the other side of not knowing. That's how you get here, is by understanding you don't know what's happening there. There is some liberty. There are opportunities. There are choices. There is an opening. The entire field of opportunity opens up before us when we are able to say, I just don't know. I don't know how to fix that. I don't know what's the answer to that. I don't know how to make this right or make that right. I don't know. But by not knowing, I'm open to what the truth is. I see the temptation within the secular movement the same way that I had to fight with it whenever I was in the religious world. Of feeling obligated to say the party line, feeling obligated to quote the party phrases, feeling obligated to stand by the party stance, regardless of what it is, or regardless of whether we've actually spent time to find out if that's really, really true, and can we know that it's true for ourselves. There's some exhilaration. There is some freedom on the other side of admitting that we don't know things. It thrills me when I'm in a conversation with a creationist, and they say, well, then what's before the Big Bang? I say, I don't know. And isn't that awesome? Isn't it wonderful to not know? I don't know, and I can't know, and it's okay. It's fine to not know. Because in all of these different vehicles that I've talked about for the last few minutes, there has been opportunities to grow as a person, opportunities to expand my mental horizons, opportunities to change my life for the better. Because I was able to get to the point that I didn't know. I was thrilled with that top down because I didn't know what the future holds. I still don't know what the future holds. And that's exciting. So the point of this, very briefly, is this. Is that I was the vehicle. You're the vehicle. The Batmobile's not the vehicle, the Firebird's not the vehicle, the Durango's not the vehicle, Dawkins isn't the vehicle, Jerry's not the vehicle, Dan Barker's not the vehicle. You are the vehicle. You're the main character of your story. And all of these things that we use, whether it's the God Delusion, whether it's Dan's books, it's my book, whether it's this meeting, whether it's Reason Rally, all of these things are just vehicles. They're just tools within our storytelling. They're just devices that we use to create a narrative that makes sense to us, that allows us to unravel things, to have those aha moments, to get to the point that we can admit there's things that we don't know, so we can say, screw it! And move on and grow in a deep way. We actually are the vehicles. We're the point. It's our personal growth that's the point. It's our exploration of this moment in time, of this unfolding of the universe. Not only are you seeing the universe for the first time and only time, but it's also seeing you for the first time and the only time. You are the only expression of you that there will be. So it's okay to be the vehicle. Can I get a Darwin? So I finish with this. If you would like to join us, not just for the messages, but also for the rides on Patreon, I would appreciate it. Remember, you are the vehicle, and remember that I am Batman. Well, how much time we got? We got a little bit of time. I'm glad to take some questions. JT.
Do you sing a song too?
Well, I sing this. I don't know if I don't know any that wouldn't cause y'all to burn the building down. but I might find one to join in to. I have to check it out. Anybody else? Yes, sir. I've just read it already.
What's your vehicle?
What's my vehicle? That's still that PT Cruiser. Matter of fact, a couple of months ago, I pulled up too close to a sidewalk and snagged the front end. And so I was backing out, to go to a meeting, and there was a lady walking her dog, it was early morning, and I heard, the scrape, and she jumped out of her skin, and the dog jumped about 3 foot in the air, and I laughed, until I got to the meeting, and saw the front end was hanging out from under it, and so now it's held together with bungee cords. It actually looks kind of cool. It looks like it's on purpose. Anybody else?
So what are you doing now? What's your job?
So I'm a consultant, and I work primarily for one company. They are a manufacturer of a chemical for the construction process of concrete. And so I travel the country representing them and managing that portion of the construction process for them.
Concrete solution.
It is concrete solutions. Very solid work. Sometimes it's hard. We do this all day. Don't be brittle. All right. So, anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Are you writing another book?
I've been working on something off and on, but a day job really gets in the way. Bad.
It's cramping your style.
It's cramping my style, yeah. And I'm trying to decide what I really want it to be. I've got something that, especially right now, really bothers me, and politically, and I would kind of like to delve off in that a little bit. But I'd also like to fill in some of the gaps of hope after faith. We were given 4 months to write that book. And so there's a lot to put in there that would answer a lot of questions that people end up with.
Would you care to elaborate on your political stance or whatever it is that you're...
Absolutely not. No. I always say to people, don't you think I have enough problems? No, I am... If the Jesus that my grandmother told me about was real, I would love it. But it's not only not what the Bible actually teaches, but it's not what Christianity today, particularly the evangelicals that run the right-wing side of the Republican Party, as well as the Dominionists, it's not the person they represent. And bothers me. It really, really bothers me.
First sentence of your book.
Yeah, there you go. It bothers me. Yeah. Grinds my gears. Yes, sir.
Still the world's worst Batmobile driver?
Yes! I don't get it at all. I just don't get it. If you go back and watch those videos, how my son didn't kill me or himself.
I've watched a couple, yeah.
Have you? Yeah, it's horrible. I don't know. I don't get it. I really don't.
Are you moving your eyes when you do it?
Sometimes I think I don't have the right controller, to be honest with you. I think she's sabotaging me. Yeah. No, I'm horrible at it. At all of it. I haven't found any of it that I'm good at, which is amazing because, you know, of course it's far less technical whenever, you know, I was young back in the 30s, but, you know, I used to be good at some of those kind of things. But
Try League of Legends. I hear it's pretty easy.
Lee. Yeah, thank you. Yes, sir.
So in your book, I remember in your book you talked about a really hard conversation you had with someone over the phone regarding, I believe, a motorcycle accident.
Yes.
And that was one of the turning points. I don't want to ruin your book for those who haven't read it, but I remember that being...
Spoiler alert, he turns out to be an atheist.
But I remember that being a major turning point in the book for you to go, why am I having to make excuses for these horrible things that are happening to
Right.
people? And as a pastor, you're having to lead people and tell them these things that you were struggling with yourself. You know, everything happens for a reason. God wanted to call an angel home, things like that for disasters. I'm just curious, which happened first? That conversation or the realization you had as you were turning into Popeye?
The Durango was first. The Durango was first, and it was first by ways. And so what I ended up with, I can just be honest with you, all right? I was egotistical to the point of probably illness. I really, really thought that God had called me to deliver a truth that no one else on the planet knew, right? That no one else had been dedicated enough or, you know, called, gifted enough to get that truth, you know, like the level of a prophet kind of thing. And so every time that I would hit one of these major obstacles, such as, you know, this faith works thing doesn't really work, my egotism would say, but now you'll figure out what is the truth, right? You'll go to the next level. You're working your way through the fallacies of Christianity. You're working your way through these things to get down to the rock bottom of what really, really is true, or how you really can help. And so there was a mixture of that, the egotism, and also a desire to stay in that community and try to find ways to still service the people within that community that did not violate my conscience or did not cause me to have to say things I no longer believe. That's the reason why at that point, when I know she wants me to pray for her and I can't do it, I realize that really one of the, you know, this was like one of the last tools in the toolbox that had not already been thrown out. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, there's not anything left in the box now. You know, there's literally nothing to use that resembles anything that she would be expecting. So I couldn't right then go, well, you know, Joseph Campbell says, you know, it wasn't going to work. So. Anybody else? Yes.
Did you have any guilt or regret about the things that you said or did while you were a pastor? And if so, how did you deal with that?
It once again could be, you know, some type of psychological disorder, but I haven't. I haven't had any guilt with that. Primarily for a couple of reasons. One is I worked really, 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 really hard to not say anything that I didn't, in some twisted way, believe was okay to say without lying. You know, I did everything I could to never lie about anything. The latest time that I lied was actually this week at a funeral. One of my old pastors came up and he said, just want you to know I really love you. You know, hugged me and said, I want you to know. And just instinctively, out of habit, I said, I really love you too. And I don't. and then I added insult to injury by saying, and if it wasn't true, I wouldn't say it. Before I even caught myself, you know, and I took a step back, and I'm like, man, what was that? It just came out. But I tried very, very hard to not say anything that I didn't, to some degree, believe or feel like could be construed towards being true somehow from some point of view. But it was extremely difficult, and it's the reason why that I kind of came out once I was more like forced out, but once I was out, it's one of the reasons why I was so plain about my non-belief and so forth, where I think some ministers might be able to find niches within progressive Christianity that they're not, where they don't have to make the kind of sacrifices that we've all made, but it depends on their conscience, and my conscience wouldn't let me get anywhere near any doublespeak anymore.
We love you, Jerry.
I love you too, so much. Is that it?
I think, are we good? Is there one question?
Oh, yeah, one?
Sure.
Sure.
I just remember watching your TED Talk, and then you had like a response to your own TED Talk kind of video.
Right.
And you were talking in there, part of it was about kind of an ideology developing within the atheist movement and how we don't see very many skeptics challenging skeptics on some specific issues. And I was just wondering if your views on that have changed at all, or if
I don't remember that, and so I'm not exactly sure what I was meaning by that. I see us challenging each other a lot, in a lot of ways. I literally do not tweet, do not post as regularly as I would want to, because I've already lost so many people. I don't want to lose all of y'all too. If I accidentally tweeting or posting something that's going to make people lose their freaking minds, because you can think you're trying to be funny, and it's not funny, and the next thing you know, there's a whole organization built to kill you. And so I think we definitely spend a lot of time making sure we're something.
I think you had one more
Oh,
question
did I?
on there, the gentleman in the immigration.
Oh, yes, sir.
When you started to separate from the religious world, how was the social interaction? Was it positive or negative?
It was very negative. Yeah, very, 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 very negative. To the point that I've actually, obviously all of you are wonderful, but none of you live in my hometown. There's a pretty active group about an hour south of me, but everybody's got their own lives. You know how it is. And so I've actually gotten accustomed to being a loner in a lot of ways. I was a very, very social person. Always, because I worked at City Hall, because I pastored churches, I was somebody in the community that was always being invited to stuff and, not really always wanting to go, but, doing it anyway, and then enjoying it when you get there, it is. To no longer be invited, to no longer be welcomed, to no longer be reached out to. It was a total reversal of my life experience and now I'm just kind of used to it. Now I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go sit over here, so, it's not that I have to, it's just I think it's a coping mechanism. Yes, sir.
Can we get the preacher voice before we leave?
yeah.
Really? Is that a thing? Yeah. We got 30 seconds?
Tell it, brother.
All right, let me just
I'm feeling the Lord about to call.
And see, some people, it drives them nuts. And so if anybody has to leave, I understand. I may leave with you. I don't know what it is that you've been through. I don't know what it took for you to get here. I don't necessarily claim to understand or to claim that I've been in your shoes exactly where you've been. But there are some things that I know today, and one of the things that I know is that you're not alone. No matter where you stand, you're not standing alone. If you look around you, there's a complete army. There is a sea of individuals that have already passed down this path. They've already gone down this road. They've already climbed the top of the mountain. They've written the script. They've taught the talk. They've walked the walk. And if you're able to stand just for a few more moments, you're going to find that you were never the one that was the oddball out, but you're the champion. You're the king. You're on the top. You're changing history. You're making it a better future
on y'all.
That was the best damn sermon I ever heard. That was awesome. You guys like that? If you guys want to see some more of that, Dan and Jared will both be on Dogma Debate this afternoon at 5:45, so make sure you're here for that. Do you want us? We can pass around like an offering plate to help repair your car. That's how Joel Osteen got his mansion. If you want us to. You guys like money? When we come back from our break, we're actually going to have Phil Ferguson talking about money. One of my favorite topics. So he's going to be speaking right at 4:30. It is 4:12 right now, so if you guys want to take a break, stretch your legs, cigarette break, whatever kind of break you want, use whatever bathroom you want. So we'll see you guys here at 4:30. Try to get here a little bit before so you can get some other things.